𝙒𝙃𝙀 TV channels 250 and 251. 𝙒𝙃𝙀 TV is a free app that can be downloaded on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. 𝙒𝙃𝙀 TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire Sticks, Roku and Roku Sticks, and all TVs 2016 and forward. Live Now is a show all about finding the synergy and body-minded spirit. Please join us as we tackle intense topics of conversation that will spur your mind, steer your soul, and give you some direction. With that said, we are excited to dive into tonight's topic with you. Thank you for joining us for another awesome episode of Live Now with Veenu and Chuck. You know, Chuck and I just got back from this amazing trip with our amazing peer groups. And we really learned about, well, the trip was about fitness, but I think Chuck and I got something totally even deeper from that. And when we were departing the airport yesterday, we said, you know what should we talk about? And Chuck's like, how about we talk about what's the why behind the why? Because that was really what this was fueling us. And we were talking about this, and, you know, it was interesting because the group that Chuck and I have the privilege to be a part of is all about family, faith, fitness, and finance. And they said without fitness, then everything else doesn't even exist. And I was like, that is so true, because if I'm not taking care of me and this body and the internal part of this body, then who's going to take care of the rest of it? And part of what we were learning was, what's the why behind the why? And one of the things, Chuck, you and I are familiar with, we've heard it for many, many years, and the personal growth industry is, if your why doesn't make you cry, it's not your why.
100%. And thank you, Veenu, for that. Yes. Amazing adventure, amazing trip, amazing community and location. I mean, Punta Cana, hello, y'all. At the 𝙒𝙃𝙔, we'll drop them a little name drop there, because it was a spectacular property. To your point, Veenu, it's so important that people do understand that health is wealth. Like, bottom line, if you lack capacity, now people go, okay, Chuck, you're treading on very thin ground here. What if someone has a challenge, a physical challenge? I said, well, that's not their overall health. I said, what we're talking about is your spiritual, mental, and physical health. We're not just talking about one level. We're talking about body, mind, and spirit. And yet the measurement that's so affluently used by folks is, what kind of car are you driving? What kind of watch do you wear? You know, where do your kids go to school? Where do you vacation? Do you go to the Hamptons? Not judging. Or do you go to Disneyland, Disney World, or do you go to an RV park? Well, why? I said they're all different scales of measurement that people use, and none of them is right and none of them is wrong. Right. They are just what it is. So why do we say the why behind the why? Well, to your point, when people ask you, why is it so important to you? Most people, at least this has been my experience, will give a very flippant, or what I will call a canned response. Well, what do you mean? How could that not be important to me? And they'll go into this explanation. How do you know it's an explanation? It doesn't have any depth to it. It literally will be stated in the general. Oh, I live an amazing life. My life is blessed. Okay. Well, that's a great way to feel and a great way to be. Why is that important to you? You go, Chuck, you sound like a 3-year-old. Like, why? It's like, great, because 3-year-olds don't have a filter, and what they're really looking for is a simple answer.
Correct.
Right? And I go, that's when you get into the why behind the why. So let's think about that for a second. Like, the first why is, and this is going to sound kind of funny, but the second why is actually a why. It's actually hiding behind that W of the why is the why, which is you. When Simon Sinek says this all the time, your why is you, your true why, not the one that is the surface why, not the one that is the popular why, or the one to fit in, that why. Oh, if I want to fit in, this is why I do it. Interesting.
It's the driving force. It's that driving force that pulls you. You know, Chuck, I was thinking about this today, and what really solidified, you know, when we were listening to Clark Bartram speak, which he was an amazing speaker, and he was like, what's the why behind the why? And then he said, if your why doesn't make you cry, it's not your why. And I was thinking, you know, on the last day when we did that impact where Katie has moved to the Dominican Republic, it's the third country of the world that has the highest human trafficking. And she says, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't just build these houses for these people. And then she found out what was going on and she's like, no more. And she put a stop to it. And the impact that we did to help these girls. And I don't know if you noticed, I was like bawling my eyes out. I was like, okay, we have got to take this further. And it was that pull. And I was thinking today, because I knew we were going to talk about this, and it still brings tears to my eyes to think how many girls that have to be turned away because there's not a big enough house. And again, that's now my why that's fueling me to think outside the box. Okay, what else could we do? It's not just throw money at it. Like, money definitely is a tool that they need right now to get the resources to handle who they have right now so they can make it bigger and go bigger. But it made me cry. It made me cry because I work with kids every day. And these kids that I work with, you know, it's what was it you or some that said that, or Dean, our friend Dean said that our worst day is someone's best day.
Absolutely.
You know, and when you think about these girls and what they go through with the human trafficking, it's my problems don't compare to that, you know? And so now it pulls me, it fuels me to just be beyond, you know, I help these kids find their purpose, you know, these kids that are going through high school and through middle school, and they're trying to find their identity and they're trying to find their purpose, which is definitely a pull for me too, because of the struggles I had. If I could help these kids heal what they feel are their wounds now, then they won't have to heal from their childhood later. And so again, it's that why behind it, that there's an emotional pull. It's not a popularity pull. It's not how can I get seen for that pull. It's the emotional pull that gives me the reason for everything I went through. So everything I went through wasn't in vain. Everything I went through wasn't just, oh, it's a learning thing. And what else do I want to do? And how do I make money?
Sure.
For me, it was an answer to all the pain that I endured through all what I considered suffering at that age. To come through it, it made it for a reason. And now I get to help kids and I get to help families, and it just touches my heart. So all these things with these kids, it really doesn't push me, it pulls me.
Well, it fuels you. It's when, as we've grown up understanding and learning that energy is universal and that it has no boundaries or limitations. So when we start to look at this from a basic standpoint, and that is, most of the challenges that young adults in modernized society are experiencing, if you live in a westernized country, is so minuscule in comparison. Not trying to diminish the challenge that someone's going through. I would say, in perspective of being sold from your family into indentured servitude or as a child bride, when even the passport information to, you know, exit and entering, it actually has categorizations like not just married and single, concubine. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, this is okay? And so there's this nuance when you almost feel like you're fighting City Hall, like you're fighting a cultural disparity that still exists. And there's only one of a couple ways to address this. One is massive sweeping change where it's almost a revolution. And the one that's actually more powerful is where it's an evolution, where it's that people are becoming so clarified and verified relative to their distinctions as to a nation, by the way, that is widely predicated on Christians, that those are not Christian values and rules by most people's definition. And to see these young children, to see, oh my gosh, like the two young girls from Russia, it
6-year-old.
it changes your entire lens
Yeah.
on what justice and injustice looks like in this world.
Yeah.
For these beautiful souls and so pristine and their energy. We met several who have children from these relationships that they were forced into, where they're actually coming to this center and they're 28 weeks, 30 weeks pregnant at 14 and 16 years old. It's mind-boggling. And people go, okay, so what does this have to do with the why?
We just asked Katie, right?
Changed her whole world.
One girl, one lady.
Yes. One woman who's fighting for legislation, who's fighting for, talk about why and purpose. A purpose-driven life is a blessing. This woman is on a rampage. She is living every single moment of every single day and looking at not just how to patch the dam, she's building them. She's building these safe havens, these harbors for these young women so that they can get educated. They can be empowered. They're fiercely independent. And yet you see the laughter and joy on their faces. They have turned their worst days into their best days.
Right.
And that happens when we understand our purpose, when we articulate our why, when we take ownership, as Veenu said, that this doesn't just push me, it pulls me. It's compelling. It has gravity to it. I don't know that there was a person there that their soul wasn't touched at the most elevated level you can possibly imagine. And not out of feeling guilt, but connecting to compassion and empathy, not just sympathy, empathy, like really understanding, my goodness, the fortitude, the energy, the commitment, the life, the presence, the resourcefulness. Oh my gosh.
But I also think we were connected to Katie's why.
100%.
You know, and that's really when we saw that she wasn't doing this because there's a lot, and thank God there are, Chuck, there's a lot of organizations out there that are putting a light on this.
Yes.
And that are doing their part in it. And I'm not going to take away from any organization because good, bad, or indifferent, there are people out there, whether they make mistakes or not, that are really, they've all added to the light that's been shined on this human trafficking that's been such a big thing for centuries, you know. And
the outcome, it's
awareness. Right. And so when we talk about the why that fuels the why, it doesn't have to be my why. If you have a why that touches me, that's how you get people to buy into it. That's how people not even buy into it. That's like probably not the right word, but connect with it.
Yes.
So they can help fuel it. And I felt Katie's passion. I felt those girls in that room. And I'm using this just as an example because I want people to understand when we say the why behind the why. You know, her why is to eventually end human trafficking in that country. But the why behind that, there's her emotional pull to it. If not me, then who? If not now, then when? And those are kind of the questions that you have to ask yourself, our listeners out there, when we're talking about this, when you ask yourself, what is my why behind my why? And I'm going to tell you, sometimes your why doesn't have to make you cry, but does your why light you up?
Yes. If something doesn't spur inside you, some level of emotion, and Veenu and I often talk about this, so we don't mean to make it sound cliche or overused, but your life is the quality of how you feel. That's it. We can't get it even any more basic than that. Your emotions are your energy in motion. It is who you are. It is why you take action, and commit to anything and everything. And I love what one of our Facebook listeners on this, and that's beautiful that your inner child and that your children and that kids and communities. This is so beautiful that people are feeling excited and inspired by hearing even such a simple conversation. We went to an entire trip based on fitness. That was the focus, just so you all know. So we'll give it some context. I left a more elevated human being by having this experience with my sister Veenu, my beautiful wife Julie, all of our other family members, and not one soul in this space wasn't touched at a visceral, deep level.
Yeah.
Where there's gravity to this now, and you can't put the genie back in the bottle. It does not work that way. When you rub that sucker, it opens up, and it Pandora's box or not, what you get is what you get. And I know, I feel it to my bones that this is just the beginning. This step that we took, this amount of capital that was raised to create capacity and opportunity is just the beginning. Is just the beginning. Because we know folks that do development. We know folks that do design build. We know folks that do financing. We know folks, and now it's like, ooh, what if there was a compound? What if there was an entire community? What if there was a multifamily development that was here? What if their lives were no different than living on a resort?
Right. Which I just got chills because the group that we belong to, Your Best Life, 𝑦BLnow.com, if you want to go check it out. We had extra rooms because people had to cancel or whatnot. They couldn't come. And instead of turning them back in, YBL gave them to these girls. Mm-hmm. And they lived in the lap of luxury for them, right? I mean, for us, it was a beautiful hotel. For them, it was the lap of luxury, something that they could never have dreamt of, mm-hmm. coming from being a child bride to being pampered. I just have chills right now, Chuck. I just have absolute chills because it's what we were able to give them for those days. And, their place got flooded while they were there. And I was talking to Katie today and I said, how beautiful that you guys were all safe during that flood, and she says, yes, like amen. Right. Like God gave them that reprieve, but in a more, in a bigger thing. And, but hearing Katie talk about her why, that really pulled us into it. We look at all the different people that were in that room. And that's why I think it was so beautiful that we said we're going to talk about this tonight, because all of a sudden the tenants family, their supplements, like I could see their why. Like when Terry and John were speaking about the supplements of what we need in our body that's lacking in the nutrition that we have. Like, I think she said we had to eat 7 oranges in order to get the nutrition we used to get from one orange like 50 years ago.
Yes.
And that's why we need the whole food. But to see her talk again, I could see her why.
Yes.
It's like she is determined, her and John and their whole family, Dr. Tenants, to give back to our bodies what we're lacking. And we could just keep going on and on. But I think what's important is to really realize that why, that, if you have that why, that emotional pull, that whole mind, body, and spirit pull into what you're doing, what could you create? What could you do today? What could you do tomorrow to answer that calling that you're having? Just like Katie did. I mean, she went there to build houses she came from the UK to build houses because it's a poverty place, right? And when she found out what was going on, her why changed.
100%. 100%. It ultimately, it comes down to something very simple, and that is living your truth. And your truth is when you're in that moment and you're living in an authentic space and you're being present, Your ultimate blueprint and plan that you may have had working on for years can change in an instant when we are called to a higher purpose. And so the why behind the why can oftentimes be construed as the purpose of your life. And what I will remind you is it can be the purpose of your life in this moment, because there's different reasons and seasons. We also get to understand that there's no such thing as perfection. And when we invite other people to the party and we can help increase capacity, when we can help other people levitate and grow, now we build communities of like-minded, like-hearted souls, and so much more progress ends up being initiated.
Yes.
This is where the power of passion, the power of proximity, the power of people, the power of profit, the power of potentiality, the power of promise, the power of prayer. Yeah, a lot of P words coming at y'all. And it doesn't have to be about perfection. And that one distinction can set you free, because now it doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
It just has to feed progress. If it's a millimeter or a mile, it does not make a difference. Katie entered into this entire existence not because that was her master plan, because she felt so compelled and drawn to this scenario. And so when the other co-founder and I and our team heard about this, and we knew we had these extra rooms, and Jesse and our production team came to us, it was like, heck yeah, let's give them the rooms. Let's give them a 5-star experience. When do they get to go on water slides like this and have room service and eat and play at pools and beyond? They have access to beaches too. They're just not these groomed beaches.
They're
With
used
of
they're
safety and security, where they could walk around and not feel in danger.
and they're so used to serving other people because that's what they were sold to do.
Yes.
And now they got served. Room service, drinks, like everything. It was just they were weighted on hand and foot, and it's the experience that they got.
Yes.
You know, first of all, it's just I feel so privileged to be a part of YBL, the community, the family, because all of a sudden we started seeing people as wise, and we're not there. It's, you know, you come to these groups, we meet people want to sell you, and it's because they want to make a buck. You know, they want to get the notoriety. They want to get the significance of my product and how I am, and I'm this and I'm that. And I didn't see that.
No.
I see that everyone there has a passion, has a purpose, has a reason. It's their business is like a child to them. How do I birth it? How do I raise it? How does it leave a footprint on this earth? How do I leave a legacy through my purpose? And exactly what Katie's doing, because now she has all of us that are pouring into it, and not just with our money resources, with our minds. Like we're on this, like, how do we help this grow so we don't have to turn any more people away? Like it broke my heart when she said she had to turn 3 girls away because there's no room. Like, you can have all the money you want in the world. If you don't have room, she said that there's not even room on the floor. That's how many girls they have.
So when you see people who are using every resource, every inch of space, and they're making the time, they're making the effort, they are putting forth best effort, they are expanding way beyond their comfort zone, like way beyond their comfort zone. And it wasn't like she was asking for a lot. What she was asking for was simple things. Simple things. And one thing that Veenu and I will do after the airing of this show is on our social media. I'm going to see Veenu if I can go ahead and secure the links again for Katie's information as well.
I'm actually getting it right now from her because I really want to share this and see if our producer can put it up too.
That'd be brilliant.
Yeah.
This is how the world gets better. When Veenu and I, and it's no different than our why. Our why to do this show wasn't go, oh, let's get famous and be on cable television. It's like, you know, this is to help create insights, distinctions, and opportunity for the everyday man, woman, And I'm going to apologize for saying that, because you're exceptional. You're exceptional. You may just not have found your purpose yet. You may have not found your why behind your why. So let's actually ask some questions that will help you identify what's next for you. What's next for you? Why is it important? Because here's the deal. Many people daydream. And daydreaming is not visioning. Let's be very specific here. Daydreaming comes from outside of you. Daydreaming is daydreaming about all the other things that other people have that you wish you had.
Yes.
It's coming from completely exterior to you, and it comes through judgment and comparison.
Yeah. Which you and I've talked about. Comparison steals our joy.
It strips you. It's like the emperor's new suit. You literally are naked in that moment. When you do not feel your purpose, your passion, your value, and I can tell you, Veenu and I strategize with a lot of successful people, and many people go through this, irrespective of their station in life. It doesn't make a difference what other people's perception of success is. Your definition is what's unique to you. Your vision doesn't come from outside of you. It comes from within you. It bubbles up from the core of you, your emotions, your feelings, and how we feel about ourselves. Not just what you think about yourself, how you feel about yourself. Are you a good person? Are you a kind person? Are you valuable? Are you necessary?
That's why Simon Sinek says the why starts with inside the circle, not outside the circle.
Yes.
And it's like the target, right? The target, when you draw that bullseye target, the target's inside. That's your why. And it's the core of it. And I keep referring to Katie because like she's such a beautiful example of that. Like what Katie showed us on Saturday was exactly what we've been talking about all week about the why behind the why, right? It's like you could see her in her core when she talked about these girls. When those girls walked on that stage and saw her, and she's like, I'm sorry, I still get emotional. And not emotional of what she does, emotional of that these girls are now walking here instead of in someone's room. And she doesn't even think about I did it. No. She thinks about how we are doing it. The sponsors are doing it. She is just the conduit of it. And that is what is so beautiful, is that when your why behind your why is not about you anymore.
And she did not reference, I want you to.
Nope.
It was always, we get to. We have created this. She knows, and without being disingenuous and exercising false humility, because she knows the commitment that she's made. And it's for a lifetime. It's for a lifetime.
Right.
To your point, Veenu, and this really is so important, she understands what her why is. She doesn't even always understand how she's going to get it done, but she finds a way. But she is very uber clear on what she does.
That's the other thing, right? Is having clarity. When your why behind your why is so strong, you could stand up and speak about it for hours. You don't need a script. You don't need to know what to say. It's you are in your creator. You're out of your ego. You're in your orientation of this is fueled through me, and I know how to explain it so well that people will feel my words. I didn't listen to her speak. I experienced her speak.
Yes. She's fearless. She's fearless. She will talk to any politician, any politica, any world leader. She will go on any stage. She knows who she is. She knows the purpose of her life. She knows what she's committed to and dedicated to. And there is not a moment that woman is not going to stand for one of these young women. And it's not just young women, it's young men too, I'm sure. So there's a lot of nuances to this, because trafficking is just young women, and it's not. And if you were to see the ages of these children, it was
heart-wrenching,
unreal. And not one of them in her presence felt insecure. They would go.
Well, the little girl.
Well,
God bless her, the 6-year-old that literally just got to the Dominican in a month ago and was sold by her own parents, by the way. I
she
mean,
had
she
a
was
sister,
shy, but then
an older sister.
when she got kind of used to us, then she was like, then talking to us, and we saw her beautiful little face. And, you know, I don't know, I have chills just talking about it still. Like,
It's so fresh. I mean, it was just yesterday. It was literally,
2 days ago, right?
it,
It's just like yesterday.
or day before yesterday. Excuse me. It's so interesting that when you go through such a profound experience, and I thought about this a lot, and I said, we all have a number of different whys as well. So I would ask that we all take this into context, that your why for your personal life
Hmm.
may be very different than your professional life. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's mutually exclusive either. And so the why behind the why, it for some folks is literally that this is who they are.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, what do you mean, Chuck and Veenu? What do you mean this is who I am? It's like, well, you're a giver and you don't stop giving. And yet I found that when that was my why, and my only why was just to be a very proficient and profound giver, that I became a really poor receiver.
Interesting.
And when you're in your relationship, even the one with your children, and even with cohorts, it's important to understand that their motives and intentions and their why, that they're giving in their way. And you have a privilege. I don't know why I'm just full of P words today, but I am. And here comes another one. And we get to make a promise. And the promise is that we're going to fulfill and allow others the gift of giving by being gracious recipients. The cycle of giving, which is some people's purpose, and it's their why behind their why, it's what juices them, fills them, elevates them. It actually fuels their soul to be able to be a giver. And they're not asking for receiving, they're praying that you receive. That's their purpose in life. When we allow that opportunity, oh my gosh, it sets the world in a whole different facilitation, because now we're actually living in a harmonic state. When you think of the yin yang symbol or a sphere,
Right.
it's not just one sided. It's not like, oh, we flip a coin. It's the entire experience together, and there's this flow that comes to it. That's the synergy of life. That is the profound nature of what provides all this power, this flexion, this control. And even that statement is completely off base, because there is no control. It's faith.
Right.
That prosperity and peace and calm and pride and love and connection are your birthrights. They're your birthright. And for someone to put so much pressure on someone to step into a life and say, I love you, but money is more important than you.
Yeah.
I'm your parent. I gave birth to you. Now you belong to someone else. That just hit me. I don't know that there's a more profound or prolific abuse that could happen than for someone to willingly, for money, give their child away. This is not the same as adoption, by the way. I really need to clarify that, because there are folks that don't have capacity who feel out of selflessness. This is where motive and intention comes in, that their child being in a different space with someone who really desires to parent, to grow, to cultivate, to elevate, to enhance, to collaborate with a young soul, or a soul of any age for that matter, and bring them into their life. And
But
help.
also, when you give your child up for adoption, you're not taking money. You know,
True.
you're looking for an agency that is going to vet and make sure that the person that's going to adopt the child that you're giving birth to is adequate that can give them the life that you can't give them. Like, because I work with a lot of adopted kids, right? Like, I have clients that have been adopted, and we work through that feeling of I wasn't good enough, so they gave me away. But what if you were good enough and that's why they gave you away? Because they weren't good enough for you.
Yeah, it wasn't that you were abandoned.
Correct. They wanted the best for you, and the best for you is them being selfless by stepping out. So there's a huge difference in
Oh,
what Katie was, that what Katie so graciously was sharing with us. And human trafficking is not just sexual. It's putting these kids to work, and
oh,
child labor and stuff like that. And what's great is that they created that law against child brides. So
yes.
it's beautiful, as the world starts to come together and we get on the same page to end this, to stop this. And we're going to put up that the website, for those of that you are listening. It's www.the B as in boy, R as in rabbit, P as in Paul.org. Please check it out, because I know, especially now with the flooding and stuff that just happened, they lost all their educational support. They really could, because that's what Katie does. This is what's beautiful about her why. It's not just helping these girls get off the street, stay safe, and prosecute these guys and women that are doing this, but educating these girls so they can go on and live a prosperous life. These girls are now going to universities, and it's just a beautiful story. So please go to that website. Again, we'll put it in our social media for you guys, so you can stay in contact, go help, whatever you can help Katie do, because again, it only takes one person. It only takes one person to have that why and have it fueled within you emotionally to say, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something. And
Yes.
then it turns into this. And so what's your why for you, those that are listening? What's your why behind your why?
Mhm.
And I love what you said, Chuck. It's not just, a mission out there. It's your why behind your why in your family. It's your why behind your why in your business. It's your why behind your why for yourself, for yourself.
And this opens up a whole can of worms for folks, because they go, well, why are you being so selfish? It's like, okay, so let me ask a different question. If you were incapacitated right now, and my wife and I were reminded of this because we had several people, there were probably 6 wheelchairs at the very beginning of our flight.
Mm.
And we noticed people had electronic wheelchairs. We noticed people were just in standard roll-up wheelchairs. Some had their walkers and their canes with them. And I'm not looking to be disrespectful. I would say some of them really needed them. And then there's some people who know how to gamify the system and get on the flight earlier. And why do I go there? Because the why is the intention. The why is the motivation. The why is, it's like, oh my gosh. Like, there's a family of 5 or 6 and grandma who, it was very interesting because I could have sworn I saw her walking earlier when they were getting food. And then when they came back to the line, she is wrapped up in a blanket around her legs and has a blanket over her shoulders that look like 2 airline blankets. I'm like, okay, so that's interesting. And had her little beanie on, and then the families lined up right behind her. And each one of them had a roller case. So why do I go there? It doesn't mean it's wrong. What it means is that someone else's interpretation is none of your business, first of all. Second of all, your why is uniquely yours. Whatever that looks like for you. There are some people who feel that getting their comeuppance or an edge on other people or an opportunity is fair, because if someone else was smart and resourceful, they could come up with the same gamification and do some things. So why do I bring that example up? In your life, irrespective of how grandiose child trafficking or just skimming in on a flight to get on earlier so you have more overhead space because you're traveling with a huge family, it's never right or wrong. Understand that people have a reason. And whatever that reason is, we get to have a responsibility not to judge.
Mm.
Because it doesn't mean that you won't be triggered in some way, shape, or form. for some people, as disgusting as I find it personally, they have no problem with child brides. They have no problem with exercising that lifestyle. I find it reprehensible and disgusting, but hey, I'm that kind of dude. And so for other folks, they may go, well, come on, Chuck, in other parts of the world, that's part of their religion. You can have, multiple wives. I said, yes, and yet they still have age limitations. They still have requirements. They still have, and I'm not touting arranged marriages or anything else. I know I'm walking on a very thin line here. What I will say is make sure that you're surrounding yourself with like-minded, like-hearted souls that will stand for you and tell you the truth, and that you make a vow to each other to always express and be present and give the truth to each other. Those will be your true friends. Those will be the people that will help you elevate you. And you'll never have to question your why behind your why.
Correct. I love it. I love it. And, one of the things that you said, purpose, we're stuck on the P words today. I don't know what that's about, but purpose. What is your purpose? It's just to start there. And when you ask yourself, what is my purpose? The next question is, why is it your purpose?
Yes. There's a trap in that though too, isn't there, Veenu, that we learned a long time ago? Because people say, well, what's the purpose of your life? I go, wait, I have to plan out my whole life? Like, I have to find the solitary purpose of my entire life? No pressure. And folks go, oh, then it must be perfect, right? I have to make it perfect. But it's the purpose of my life. That's everything. Well, what if we simplified and said, what's the purpose at this point in your life?
Right.
This moment, this very point on this timeline.
Because my purpose 15 years ago, 17 years ago, was just to live each day. Was to put a smile on my face, pretend I was happy, and to live each day. That was my purpose. And to get out of bed. That was my purpose. My purpose today is totally changed. And my purpose back then served me.
Sure. The difference is when it becomes a living document within your own existence.
And I want to say also, 16, 17 years ago, when that was my purpose, my why was my children.
Absolutely.
My why filled my purpose.
So your priorities at that point.
Correct.
See, the reason why we're using so many P words is they're profound. There's a lot of value in this. And part of this is, we're not just saying this for talk or hyperbole or just to make, conversation. This hit both of us. In fact, I don't know of anyone who wasn't touched by this at such a deep level that it literally shifted. I mean, we had one of our speakers at this event who donated his entire speaking fee to this organization.
And I'm personally going to be doing group coaching with these girls for free. Because it's more than just sponsoring a child. It's more than just
open to all of these possibilities. We see so myopically that we're staging or trying to be strategic rather than being real.
Correct.
And to be able to have this opportunity to live in our purpose, to live in this space of just acknowledgement and grace of going, wow, we were witness to the launch of a new day for our community, and one that Katie has been living for decades. It's like, holy smokes, how all this comes together. So the next time you're having a challenging day and you might be questioning, is life happening to you or for you? Pull on your ears for a moment, clear your eyes, and look around and listen. You may be finding so much opportunity that's presenting itself and availing itself right before you, and you just weren't aware or present prior to this.
And I think that when your why shows through so much and so powerful, like it did in Katie, it attracts other people's whys to join in, and it becomes a bigger why.
It's infectious.
It is. I mean, one of our, I don't know if you know this, but one of our members of YBL, she owns a payroll company, and January is their biggest month.
Mm-hmm.
And she's donating 10% of their sales of January to this organization. Again, it fuels her why. It made her why even bigger. And so I share this because I want people to know the domino effect or ripple effect, if you would, that your why, when it is so strong, and it wasn't about making this about Katie, but I just think that it's a beautiful example of what today's show is about. It's so infectious, and it allows other people to feel your why even more.
There's another point too, Veenu, and thank you for bringing this up. Sometimes people will create such a grandiose why.
Oh, yeah.
It's to feed the world, to end suffering, world peace. What I love about Katie is she's working in the microcosm of reality. And she's doing what she can, when she can, how she can, why she can. That's brilliance. That is absolute conviction at the highest level. That is utilizing all your resources. That is creating the leverage in the right ways, and not under the guise of popularity or languaging right now. It's like, let's get this out to the world. Let's blow this thing up. And I find that there are challenges, and that we all can understand this very clearly. Mm-hmm. That when you are facilitating this type of organization, and one thing that's been beautiful about Katie is she's not just making it about herself. She's looking for adaptation and resources and great motive and intention.
Right.
Because you can tell that she's led by that. And she's not going to be flippant about accepting help. She will vet and clarify and verify. And one of the things I know that we will do within the community is to make sure that she's supported in this regard as well. It makes such a big difference. Such a big difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Chuck, again, I'm so glad that we talked about this, because I think, this week is Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And it's my favorite holiday because, number one, our family comes together in my house. Everybody takes that time to come together, regardless of where they live, how we come together. And it's that moment that we go around and we think about the year and what we're grateful for in that moment. And I think it's a great time to talk about this. Like, what is our why? What's our why behind Thanksgiving? What's our why behind Christmas? Make these holidays something more than just what society, like what it's supposed to be, right? Like, oh, Christmas, it's presents. I love Christmas, honestly, for the decorations. People love Christmas. If you're Christian, you love it for that reason, for religious reasons. And I just love the holidays because it's a time for our family to come together. And I think we get so busy in our lives, living life, doing life. And now we get to just breathe in life when we're with our family.
So just remember, whys aren't things and stuff.
Yes.
Why is how it makes you feel.
I love it. Well, once again, brother, I thank you for joining us. Again, the website's up here, www.thebrp.org. We'll put it up on our websites as well. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Happy holidays.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Live Now with Veenu Keller and Chuck Hogan. Follow us on Instagram at Veenu Inspires and at Chuck Hogan Now. For more about Veenu, please visit VeenuInspires.com. And for Chuck, please check out YBLNow.com. This show can also be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out 𝑠panglishworld.ca for all your news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.